Let's move on to the other team in LA, the Los Angeles Clippers. They add Brook Lopez, John Collins, Bradley Beal, Chris Paul. They lose Norm Powell in the John Collins swap. Amir Coffey also gone. And then there's the Kawhi Leonard scandal, which we've talked about it on the show already a bunch. So we don't necessarily need to do the particulars of the scandal unless you have a take that you necessarily have to get off. I imagine you've talked about it a ton too. So we can just breeze by it if we want, but it will impact, I think,
this. I'll
the
say
season.
this as my summary of the Clippers situation: Occam's razor. And for those unfamiliar with it, look it up and you'll know what I'm talking about. That's all I would say is just Occam's razor.
On paper, this team got better.
Yeah, I would agree.
The Kawhi stuff to me is an issue, and there's been a lot of people, smart people, who disagree with me, who think, hey, Kawhi's availability has always been an issue. It's always kind of something going on with him. It's always a little bit of a distraction with him because he's so sort of off on his own, and you don't really know what's going on there. And so the Clippers and Ty Lue have navigated these waters before, and you look at all the guys they got, and they're just so much better as a roster, so much more dynamic, so much more versatile. And I agree with a lot of that stuff. I also don't think they've ever dealt with a distraction quite like this. This just feels different in tenor, in magnitude. And when I'm trying to go through this and I say, okay, this team got better, this team got worse, this was the only one I actually had a hard time with because, again, on paper, they clearly got better, I think. But in practice, this team won 50 games last year. They were pretty good. They should win 50 games again. And I had them projected to easily clear 50 games before all the Kawhi scandal stuff. But these are the kinds of distractions that can tank an entire season regardless of the offseason additions that you made. And that would be my big fear if I were a Clippers fan is this Kawhi thing just takes on a life of its own more than it already has and becomes such a distraction during the regular season that all this on paper stuff can't really function the way we hoped.
I'm not as concerned about that just because unless Kawhi gets suspended or I guess his contract gets voided or something like that, and he's quite literally not available to play for the Clippers or no longer on the Clippers, there's not really much that can come of this investigation that I think will directly affect the basketball this season. It may affect the future for the Clippers moving forward, and that's obviously a big deal, but it doesn't really have much to do with this season. And Kawhi has always been so inscrutable his whole career that I don't know, again, unless this leads to him being suspended, I don't know if you're even going to know the difference in a lot of ways with Kawhi. Like he has dealt with a lot of stuff, like this. If you believe everything that Pablo Torre has been uncovering and, guys like John Corrales over at the Locked On Network with us, some of the reporting they've done, these are things that Kawhi has been dealing with and keeping secret for years anyway. So he's been juggling this anyway, and it hasn't been an issue. To me, if injuries don't trip up Kawhi, I don't think this situation is really going to affect the Clippers on the court, just because I'm not sure what can come of the investigation other than a suspension of Kawhi that would actually affect the team. Like, if, say, they lose draft, like if, say, Adam Silver announces a punishment that involves loss of draft picks moving forward, that's obviously a massive deal for the Clippers, but it doesn't affect them this season. It doesn't really hurt them for the now. I think the additions that they made, the Clippers might have the best depth in the league when it comes to just guys on your roster that you can put on the court without being worried that they're not NBA players or that they really have no business being on the court. They're not ready to be out there. They got like 11 or 12 guys that you can, they may have flaws, they may have weaknesses, whatever, but you can confidently put them on the court knowing they're NBA players. There aren't a lot of teams like that. There's a collective age issue. 3 of the 4 newcomers that they brought in, Chris Paul, Bradley Beal, Brook Lopez, have age, injury concerns, or both. John Collins is the only guy they brought in his 20s. And he's an interesting guy in his own right, just because it's been so long since John Collins has played basketball that anybody has cared about at all. So it'll be interesting to see what he looks like in this situation. I I think they are very susceptible to age and attrition and injuries, but they've got a lot of guys on this roster that can play. They've got a lot.
They do.
And they've got a lot of pieces that I think fit together very well. Like remove the age question and the number next to all these guys' names that largely begin with a 3, and just look at the skill sets. The skill sets are pretty well meshed.
I love the roster. If we're let's play it out, talk about this basketball team on paper. I love this roster. I have 2 rules. People have heard me say it. I don't know if you've heard me say it. I have 2 rules when it comes to covering the NBA. Never trust the Clippers. And don't watch the Hornets after February. And that's it. Those are my 2 rules. There's no reason
What's
to watch
the reason for watching them pre-February, just out of curiosity?
To do your job. But I let myself off
Fair.
the hook.
Fair.
I let myself off the hook. By then, LaMelo's hurt and nobody cares.
Including LaMelo.
At least by then. I hear you about the age concerns. I think they're almost so deep that I don't care about it. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
Harden is an innings eater. That guy's going to play so many regular season games.
Yeah.
I kind of love the addition of Chris Paul for this team.
I do too.
Because last year, and this wasn't even necessarily a bad thing, but their offense kind of had 2 modes, and they would toggle between the 2 very distinct offenses. One was James Harden runs pick and roll with Ivica Zubac, and that was incredibly efficient. And then the other one was dump the ball into the post to Kawhi and let him go to work, and that was incredibly efficient when he was at his best. Chris Paul, that's just a new ingredient. It's a new menu item. It's something else that they could do. It's, okay, well, when it's not Harden and when it's not Kawhi, we can at least grab 5 to 10 minutes a night of Chris Paul making things work offensively for us.
He's one of the all-time great floor raisers in NBA history.
Yep. And you look at some of the shooters on this roster, and I'm like, okay, he's going to kick out to Collins in the corner. I think he'll be on the court with Bradley Beal or Harden, so he's going to be able to kick out to those guys. Obviously Kawhi is a great spot up shooter. Like, these guys there's Derrick Jones Jr. is a little up and down, but he's pretty reliable as a spot up guy at this point of his career. So yeah, I think Chris Paul can make things happen. The John Collins thing, to me, I think we could put a pin in that for maybe a later section. But and then you add Brook Lopez between Zubac, who I have as a top 8 or 9 center in the league. I think he was easily one of the best 5 centers in the league last season. Really good. And then you add Brook Lopez to that, and they might have the best 1-2 punch at center in the league at this point, outside of maybe Cleveland with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So I really like a lot of what this Clippers roster is. My concern, though, is have we added too much Chris Paul, Bradley Beal, John Collins, Brook Lopez to the point where I'm having to play guys like Chris Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr. a little bit less than what I did last year, because they felt so like there was a clear framework in place of how it worked, where it was Zubac, Derrick Jones Jr., and Chris Dunn kind of being the backbone of a really good defense, the 3rd-rated defense in the league. And then sort of Kawhi and James Harden just figuring it out offensively. And as we said, they did enough. Do the additions of these big name veterans start to diminish the roles of those Derrick Jones Jr.'s and Chris Dunn's, who are so like toolsy and fundamental to what the backbone of this defense was?
I think it depends on whether or not Ty Lue has discussed with Chris Paul, with Brook Lopez, with even Bradley Beal. I want to try to limit your minutes up to a certain point. I mean, frankly, with Lopez and Chris Paul, you should be looking to do that anyway. They're in their late 30s, or is Chris Paul now 40? He's close to 40 if he's not 40. Like, I know Chris Paul played 82 games last year, and that's
40.
Yeah, and by the way, that's something that kind of flew under the radar. Chris Paul playing 82 games at his age last year was
unbelievable,
pretty amazing. But there's a natural cap to the workload you want to put on those guys anyway. You know, Bradley Beal has had, I know he's not old, but he's had a lot of injury concerns over the course of his career. So there should be, I think, a certain cap to the workload you want to put on those guys anyway. I think it's one of those areas where Ty Lue, as a very respected coach and also somebody that I think is a very good communicator and somebody that players seem to bond with in terms of just, I will orchestrate your vision. I understand what you want to do. I trust you for what you want to do. I think Ty Lue is about as well equipped a coach in the league to deal with this potential issue that you're talking about. And I've heard other people raise that question as well. Like, will some of those really important defensive players who don't necessarily grab the headlines or the stats, but really matter, are they going to get squeezed? I would say if Ty Lue allows that to happen, it means either these newcomers are much better at filling the cracks that Jones or Dunn would than anybody expected, or he's leaning into all offense and just we're going to outscore everybody, or I guess leaning into the status of those guys. But I would think that if Ty Lue could have hard conversations with prime LeBron, he can have hard conversations with Brook Lopez in his late 30s.
And that's the other part of this too. If I trust a coach to figure this stuff out, it's Ty Lue. He's on a short list of coaches who I trust to figure this stuff out for the exact reasons you already said. And I'm by the way very interested to see what Bradley Beal looks like when playing for a team that's not actively trying to make him unhappy to the point that he gives up $50 million. Like, just the guy's a really good three-point shooter still. He shot basically 40% when he was happy in Phoenix versus when they were trying to make him miserable. So
do they have splits, happy versus unhappy? Like,
for him, they
like
should.
The
Actually, we could probably come up with like an all happy versus unhappy NBA team. And